we've been told that that's what being an entrepreneur is like. It's meant to be hard. It's meant to be a grind 24/7. But in reality, being an entrepreneur is about setting up systems and processes that it will allow your business to grow without you.
All right, couch sessions. Couch sessions. Couch sessions. Couch sessions.
It's one of those days.
Yeah, one of those days. 4 coffees in, still struggling.
God, it's been a long ass week.
Couch sessions is our version of just chats. Friday arvos, having a conversation, talking anything relevant, something we've seen, some things that we've noticed. A little bit different for us more than anything, I think. I think that's the thing is I'm enjoying about it. It's kind of stepping out of the bubble of business, investing, and more just talking about absolutely anything that I've seen and that interests us. So the first thing I wanted to bring up, what's your take on vaccines?
Controversial topic at the moment with
Very.
everything that's going on with AZ, isn't it? I actually put myself down on the wait list yesterday because I just figure something I just want to get over and done with. And then if we're able to travel sometime soon, I'm all for it.
It's really interesting, right? Like we were having this conversation at the dinner table Wednesday night with like my partner's family, and everybody's, it's like split. It kind of reminds me of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin conversation around the family table like months and months ago. But I just think it's such an interesting topic. Like, I'm in this weird state where I'm like, if I'm gonna need it to do things, I'll get it. But until like Australia at 20 cases for me isn't like in my head. I'm like, I don't think we need it here yet. But I mean, I know that they're looking at legislation at the moment where if you've got the vaccine, you don't ever have to go into lockdown, and you can travel and these kind of things.
I saw an article before this, literally like 20 minutes ago, that said some employers are going to potentially not hire you if you don't have the vaccine. So it looks like people are getting on board. It's more preventative though.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the health industry, right? So like I've got a lot of people that I follow that are in the health industry, and vaccines is such a controversial topic in that.
Do you get the flu shot?
Nah.
No, me neither.
But only because I'm lazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I'm not,
Well, I don't know about you, but I don't ever get sick, so it's not one of those things that I consciously want to go and get because I feel like it wouldn't make a difference to me, which is probably a naive thing to think.
Yeah, I think this is the interesting dichotomy with vaccines, right? It's like there's the argument of it's like the selfish argument where it's like, I'm young, it's not going to harm me, who gives a fuck? And then there's like the other side to it where it's like, yeah, but you could also get sick and then someone else might get sick who it may actually harm or potentially kill them. And I think that's the hard dichotomy with this, because I find myself at times going, like I'm probably not going to get it, but just because I don't think I need it. Like 20 cases in Australia, if Australia went to like, I don't know, but probably like 500 to 1,000 cases, like anything up around that mark, I would probably start to look at it. Like if we were in deep water, like the UK and the US, I reckon I would probably get it. But we're not there, and we're not anywhere close.
It is that argument though of like you wanting to protect the people around you, So if you visit your nan or your grandfather or whatever, you're helping to protect them, and I suppose that's what it's all about.
Yeah, but protect them from what, right? Like there's nothing to protect them from at the moment. Like we've got 30 cases in Australia, or maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. But I think that's the thing that people struggle with.
Yeah.
But I mean, in America and UK, it's a different story. Like if I was living there, I'd probably have it by now.
But you and I like to travel, so it's one of those things that if it means that we're able to go and travel, then that's what we're going to get it for mostly, And so that's why I put myself on the wait list, because as soon as we're able to travel, I'd like to be able to get on the plane.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at going over to New Zealand And I'm not going to be able to do that unless I'm vaccinated. So, don't know.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when it gets to that point, I will. I'll probably look at it too, because I do want to travel.
What about the aspect of this being a new technology and you don't really know the long-term benefits or side effects of what's going into your body?
Yeah, and this is kind of the other side of it, which I was saying, I come from the health and fitness industry, right? So I've got a lot of really smart people as it relates to health. Some people are for, some people are against, but the stats are, when you put the stats up, it's pretty alarming, I think. I think, the AstraZeneca and all the stuff that's happening with that, I seen someone put up a stat the other day. I don't know if it's true, so I'm not going to, don't take my word on it, but I think it's related deaths in Australia. And we've had more deaths from the vaccine than we have from actual COVID.
From COVID, yeah.
Which it's scary, and I think...
How are they dying?
I don't know. Oh, so I know, look, I think...
Is it these blood clots? Is that what it is?
I'm not 100% sure, but let me...
And do they have underlying health issues as well?
Yeah. I would assume so. I would assume that it's...
But I guess a lot of it, there's we could have something that we don't know about as well, So we put this vaccine into our system and not knowing that we've got something wrong with us, and then this is potentially where we're getting caught out.
I think the whole thing with it is, the chances of dying or something happening are so minimal, but there's still chances. And I think that's the argument, are you willing to risk that? And that's a personal question that, nobody's ever going to be able to force that to you. They'll be able to incentivize it like they are. But I think the biggest thing with vaccines is, or the biggest kind of question that everybody has is is that okay? Is that morally sound? Yeah. And are we okay with that as society? So, and it's such a hard question because you're asking yourself, we could save all these lives, but is it, what about the 0.003 who actually die or who have these actual side effects? I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about the science and these kind of things. So for me, on a personal level, it's I don't feel the need to do it yet. Just because, I'm probably not willing to take that risk if there's no massive upside to it. That's how my mind thinks about it.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, it's yeah. There's
you got
to weigh up the benefit and the risk of whether you get it or not.
I think the whole I think people get so far down the rabbit hole of the conspiracy theories, they're trying to control us and all that. That's the stupidest shit in the world. Yeah. I can understand how it gets to that point and how there's some people that hate the government. The government could put $1 million in their bank account and they would probably still fucking hate the government and say that the government's trying to control them. Yeah. It's fucking.
They spend too much time on Facebook in those little subreddits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such an interesting time in the world. It's crazy to think that we've been in COVID now for nearly 2 years. A year and a half.
Time flies when you're having
18
fun.
months. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's exciting though, the technology that they've used in order to create these vaccines. Vaccines usually take years and years to develop, and yet they were able to come up with one after, what was it, less than a year, almost. So I'm excited from that point of view, being invested in the whole CRISPR space and gene editing and all that sort of thing. Not to mention I made a pretty penny off Moderna, which is quite nice. But I find it interesting from that point of view. The fact that we're able to expand our healthcare and everything through these technologies. And because of COVID, they pumped a lot of money, obviously, into these fields, into the research. And they've come up with a vaccine as quick as they have. Where's this going to lead us in terms of curing diseases?
Do you think it will, though? Do you think that's where it'll go?
Yeah, I do. 100%.
Because, the incentives there, the incentive, the reality is a lot of these diseases that we've had have been around for years.
Mm-hmm.
Because this one is fresh, the incentives are there for scientists to actually, or these companies to actually invest their human resources there. But fucking cancer's been there for years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So why now? Why do we think that the continuation of this acceleration of technology is going to drive people to want to fix these things? Because I understand COVID, and I understand why the money's being invested, because we have a problem that's so relevant now, and it's so in front of everyone, it's stopping everyone from living their lives. But I almost think it's I don't know, I got a bit of a different opinion. I think it's almost a little bit naive to think that just because we've seen an acceleration in technology for a problem that we have, that'll filter into some of it. I think...
But you're able to extrapolate that data and then use that across different viruses.
100% you are. You can.
Yeah.
Whether they will or not,
They will. If there's money attached to it, they will.
That's what I'm saying, though. Will there be that kind of money? I think the gene editing is that definitely, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of think that the carrot's been there for years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the technology hasn't been there. Ow, that hurt. Yeah, the technology is improving to the point where we're able to. There's a reason, AI's been around for decades, but it's only starting to gain relevance now because the technology's caught up. So that's where, that's why I'm excited about this whole biotech scene, because we're at a point now where we can actually extrapolate that data and use it in ways that will actually help to benefit society.
It's an interesting space. So lockdowns, what's your take on lockdowns then?
Again, it's the whole preventative measure of, looking after those who are vulnerable, isn't it? Because obviously now with the Delta strain, it's highly more, what's the word? Highly more contagious. And so obviously the more people who get it, the more they come in contact with people who are susceptible to it. And then that's where we lead to these issues. So, I guess it's proven to have worked here in Australia, but now it's at the point where you get 1 or 2 cases and they automatically put you into a lockdown. And I just think the toll on people's mental state, as well as obviously on the economy as well, it's starting to have some real serious ramifications. And so I don't actually know what they can do in order to, I guess, get us back to a somewhat normal life where we don't have to go back into these snap lockdowns, I guess that's where the vaccination comes into it. The more people who get vaccinated, we probably won't have to. But until that point, what choice do they have?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing with this. This is that full circle that we're talking about right now. I was having this conversation at the dinner table the other night, and it's the reality is these micro lockdowns are working.
Well, that's it. There they are.
I'd much rather be in a lockdown for 2 weeks than I would for 3 months, because we've experienced that here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And it's I think everyone can say that they would much rather be in a minor lockdown than they would to be in a major. Now, the other side of it is small business gets absolutely hammered here.
Yeah.
And I feel for small business owners out there. I really do. And part of me, the reason I think these minor lockdowns are good is purely because of that, right? It's because we don't want to go into the major lockdowns. So, are we willing to go through these minor lockdowns to actually allow that to make sure that we don't go into the major ones?
Yeah.
Well,
I guess from my point of view, yes, I'd much rather a shorter one, obviously. Having gone through the long ones last year that we went through, they're tough, aren't they? And the fact that the whole city is locked down for such a long period of time, it's not good for anybody. But, again, it's the preventative measure. We're protecting those who are vulnerable most. And it's hard being a young person to sort of have to deal with that, have to come to the conclusion that we're doing this for the betterment of somebody else. We're having to do this for unselfish reasons, and a lot of our actions are for selfish reasons. It's a weird one.
It's hard because you, like you said, right? it is such a dichotomy of wanting to do the right thing for your country, wanting to do the right thing for the people around you, such as the elderly. Can we put a price on their life? Like, there's two sides to this. There's a side where you go, well, this virus is just killing off people, and that's what it's designed to do.
Yep.
Like nature is the smartest thing in the world. It's a beast, and it will always do what is needed in order to keep to keep the world going, to survive. And that's the reality of it, right? So it's doing that. And I think the part of me that goes, this virus is going to kill off people. We can minimize that. Is that our responsibility here? And I just think that, I don't know, like, for part of it, and I think about it and I'm like, look, that's the discussion we're having right now. You've got anti-vaxxers who don't want to get vaccinated, who are totally against it, but they're also the same people that are totally against lockdowns.
Yeah.
And it's like, so what are we saying here? That whether someone's overweight, old, are we willing to just let those people die? Right? And that's the moral question here, because if you're against lockdowns and you're against vaccines, there's no, like, I don't get it. That means you're pro these people dying.
Yeah. It's very selfish. It's a very selfish way of thinking, and so that's probably why, like, majority of us do need to go and get vaccinated, because then it means that we could resemble a normal life, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's hard and that's the thing that I struggle with, is like, I don't really want to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
But then the other side of me goes, well, what do you want? Do you want lockdowns?
Yeah.
And the reality is
like, we're all at the point where we just want to get on with our lives, and it's hard. Like, you look over at the US and what's happened over there. They just let it run through society, and now they've kind of got the herd immunity, and they're going about their everyday life.
Vegas pool parties. Everything.
Yeah, exactly. They're pretty much living life normally. They're able to travel, and
I'm on the fence, and I'm personally not going to go and take that step until I feel the need to, which is either going to be for selfish reasons, where it's like, I want to travel, or I can't do things in life that I want to do, or if it gets bad here, like if it gets to a point where I feel like I'm going to be putting others in danger, I'll probably go and do it. That's just my way of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I've already put myself on the wait list, so as soon as I'm in the clear, I'll be going to get it straight away.
Some really cool stats here, actually, that I'm looking at, of how many, like the percentage of the population of countries that have actually been vaccinated. So the UK is at 66%.
First dose or first and
At least
second?
one shot. At least one shot. The US is at 54%. It's really interesting, and you think about this, and I guess this is the very harsh side of this whole scenario, that in a state of where the world is on its knees, a country like Kenya has only had 2%.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
that for me is the sad thing about all this, because, and again, this is why I keep coming back to Bitcoin, right? And the blockchain technology, it is just so important because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Kenya, 2%. How are countries like that meant to, this is probably when it matters most. The wealth inequality gap is just so big.
Mm-hmm. It's an economic factor,
And that's why Bitcoin is so important, right? It's that Bitcoin and blockchain technology has the ability for these countries to start to close that wealth inequality gap. And that wealth inequality gap has only been created, obviously, through these powers to be. But we've seen El Salvador, we're now seeing Paraguay. These countries are now starting to make it legal tender.
It's probably going to take decades, though, for there to be real change, though.
Of course,
yeah.
but that's fine. Because the reality is the Spanish flu was what, 70 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully in 70 years time, because think about how many, like I don't even want to. Let's get this up, right? So 2% vaccinations. 2% vaccinations, and Kenya has had. This is fucking pretty full on. Kenya has had 183 million cases.
Wow.
And 3 point. No, sorry, that's wrong. 185,000 cases, 3,640 deaths, which actually is not too bad.
No.
No. That's not too bad. I thought that would be worse.
Well, when you said 185.
Yeah, that's the world.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the world cases.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's look at another country now. Let's start to change this around. Okay, so India, right? India's had 20% vaccinated, but they've had 400,000 deaths.
Mm.
So, it's crazy to think, right? That I think that's going to be the biggest thing that we see at the end of this is that, the countries who do get vaccinated at the greatest rate are obviously going to be the richest countries, which makes sense. But I think, again, the point is that I really, truly believe that this is what blockchain technology can do. Because the reality, like, these countries were never going to catch up. Like, unless there was change and there's technology to change that wealth gap, they're never, like these South American countries, that they're never going to close that gap. Because there's no business moat, right? Like, there's no, like, you think about it, if you're playing in the same, like the world currency, which is the US dollar, that literally dictates other economies, right? That's the world currency. So it's like, if you're America, like, maybe country like China, right? But again, that's totally a different ball game to some of these other countries. Like America almost have a moat around them.
Well, they've also got the advantage of technology, which also, as we know, grows exponentially. And so as that technology is exponentially growing, things like food and healthcare and all those sort of things that do keep us alive for longer, keep us healthier and all those sort of things, the advantage is always going to be there for your developed nations. Whereas, yeah, you're right. Those sort of countries, they don't have those resources. They don't have the means to get those resources. And so that's where the struggle's always going to be. Mm.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think of Bitcoin as an investment, you see it in one light. But I think the biggest thing for me is when you see things like that, right? Where we're in a global pandemic, and obviously countries like the one we live in, America, the UK, like they're just going to have so much more opportunity when it comes to these kind of things. When it comes to getting vaccinated and so on. So I think long term, this is again why blockchain technology and Bitcoin can play such an amazing role in some, especially for some of these lower demographic countries.
Yeah, it's important to obviously spread that wealth and try to bridge that gap, but it's something that you just sort of see in a long-term debt cycle. The wealth accumulates as it does, and then something happens which sort of allows it to even out again, but then the way that society is sort of set up at the moment, it'll just continue to just go in these cycles and do the same thing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
All right, so the next thing that I seen that was pretty cool was Katy Perry. She, and I think this is kind of quite cool, we've talked about this before, but Katy Perry has signed with a company called Theta Labs, right, to bring out her own Nft'S. And the whole kind of notion around it, or the strategy, is she's bringing it out for her fans, which will... It's through a blockchain video streaming platform. So, there's a lot of artists out there at the moment doing that, so that what this allows them to do is, to not go through management agencies or go through production studios and these kind of things where, those studios are taking quite a large percent. She'll create an NFT, and basically what that NFT will be is someone will be able to buy the rights to that token.
Has she partnered with those guys, or are they taking a clip?
She's partnered with them.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting, right? Because it's like, I mean, what I'm seeing in the media space is it's almost like that direct link to your fans, where your fans can have access to things that they normally wouldn't have access to. Where usually they would pay you with attention, right? So they're either listening to your song and then the wealth is getting accrued by other people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas they haven't put what kind of strategy she's using yet, but basically within that NFT, they would own rights to. It could be a particular song or so on. It could be access to something. It could.
Or is it more of a community-based token, or is it an NFT?
It's going to be a series of NFTs.
Okay.
So the way I look at it, I don't think it's going to be a community token.
Okay.
I think it's like someone can own the rights to that artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not she codes something into that or so on, I'm not too sure. So I don't know if there's going to be some added benefits or layers added on top. But yeah, it's interesting because I think that's, we talk about Square, right? And Square investing in, buying out, what's it called?
Title.
Mm-hmm. And that at the time was like, what's going on here, And it's kind of like Jack Dorsey, once again, gangster move ahead of his time, kind of getting in early, and everyone's like, I remember when it first happened, everyone's like, doesn't really make sense, but hey, we'll back Jack in. But I think that if you're getting into the crypto space, everybody's got it's almost like everybody's got their goggles on, right? And it's like laser focused, like Bitcoin. And Square buying Tidal, I reckon there's a huge play here with NFTs or something to do with that.
Yeah, potentially. So the reason they bought it initially, and this could be a second order sort of play that they're thinking about, but the initial reason why they bought it is because Tidal and Cash App can be intertwined, because a lot of their demographic is the African American community in the US. And so, yeah, they're trying to expand Cash App via Tidal, because Tidal's got 40 million users or something like that. So they want to try and bring those sort of people on board. So in a sense, it's a marketing play, but then they also wanted Jay-Z on the board, and it was an easy way to do it. This is just a second order thing that they could probably think to include is these NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if it happens, because I know Tidal was all about putting the power to the artist.
Yeah.
So if you like, it just makes sense, right? You kind of look. You go, what does blockchain do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Square's got the power to do it. I think there's a reason they're buying Bitcoin. I think it's obviously on the balance sheet, but I think the fact that they might want to keep buying means that in the future they might want to be able to have power to trade or whatever.
Well, Jack, I know he's innovating in this space and trying to incorporate as many features as he possibly can. So he's definitely one to watch in this area for sure.
100%. So I think it's so interesting, and I think the media space over the next the next couple of years is going to be super interesting to see. Because a lot of artists are doing it. They've said on here that this same company has been the company that has live streamed all the launches of Elon's SpaceX launches.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting to see them innovate as a company. They're called Theta Labs. But, it's they're not just trying to go for crypto enthusiasts. You know what I mean? They're trying to go for media enthusiasts and see how they can transform it in that way.
I'm not sure. I'm starting to think that NFTs isn't the thing that we're going to get out of this, but it's going to be more the community and the social tokens. I think they're going to be the real winner here, not owning your little digital art piece or anything like that. But I think being able to build out a community and then try to find a way to monetize that and add as much value as you possibly can from these community tokens. I think that's where there's going to be a real shift in narrative, and there's going to be a lot of financial reward, and it'll build out people's communities, allowing them to be more engaged, and as you said, cut out the middleman, cut out your Instagrams and your YouTubes and that sort of thing. And I'm really, really interested to watch that space.
Yeah, the community tokens are going to be huge, like in the future. Yeah. Once people get once we get a good understanding of, I guess, the right way to do it. You know what I mean? Because we don't know that. It
still needs to mature. It's still such an early scene, and obviously there's people out there trying them now. But what we see at the moment, I think, is probably not going to be the solution. We're probably still a good, 3, 4, 5 years away until we sort of get an idea of what it's actually going to entail.
Because I guess the whole thing with NFTs that aren't community tokens is the fact that they can't, like, it's you obviously own the authentic rights to it, and that digital code can't be copied in a sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to see, the community tokens would be great, but even in the media space, it's like you could NFT a song, and then release that song not through a production company or anything like that, but more so, straight to the public, which means that the end user will get the value because they might now own rights to a particular song, or however there'll be
kickbacks for sure though to the artist.
Royalties.
Yeah, royalties.
So you can add royalties into these NFTs.
Yeah.
So as it gets on sold.
Yeah. But do you not feel like NFTs is just hype based?
Well, I think it's no. So
and it's just a fad.
You know what? I think it is around artwork.
It's very niche. Like, I know baseball cards has been a hot topic for the last 20 odd years or whatever, but it's so niche. It's not something that we talk about all the time, and I feel like NFTs are just going to be a very niche thing as well. They're going to play to a certain type of person, but then that's it.
Yeah. So I look at it in two ways. I look at it like some of the NFTs that are going around now that are selling for big bucks, I don't think will be like the Pokemon cards. Like, there's a 5-year, 10-year window where they're really expensive and they're really valuable. But then outside of that,
a new thing will come along and then they'll become irrelevant again.
100%. But I think it's different with artists, right? I think for an artist or someone who produces some type of artwork outside of actual art, so someone who sings a song, someone, of that nature, I think that's the only thing that can come to mind right now. But, someone who does that, like, they are relevant in that time. And I think it's not a fad with them because really all it is the same thing, except they're being able to capture the most of that value. It's
a weird one for them to sort of balance though at the moment, because obviously there's traditional radio and media sort of avenues like that. Then you've got your streaming giants, and now they're sort of building out these community tokens. So they need to obviously try to balance out, because they need to, in my opinion, they still need to produce for the mass market. I feel like these NFTs and that sort of thing, they're just doing that for the through and through fan, whereas like you and I might still listen to Katy Perry when they come up on the radio or whatever, but personally, I'm not listening to Katy Perry every day. So I still think it's very niche, but it's interesting for sure.
Watch that space.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that has caught my attention this week, or I've been thinking about, is the burden of success, and kind of the chase. In a sense, the I guess how it can make you feel at times, how tough it can be, or not necessarily how tough it can be, but more so how to manage that. I think is really an interesting topic, right? So you can chase something so much that you're never satisfied, in a sense, right? And then how that can become the weight on your shoulders. And then the other side of it is like doing it for the love of doing it, right? So and then being grateful for the positions that you're in, which is, it's interesting. Like, I think, like, because I can honestly say that I feel both at times. Like, there's times where I burn myself out purely from just, wanting to do crazy things, you know what I mean? And wanting to do things and be, so above average all the time that it ends up just weighing me down massively. And then there's other times where I feel amazing. And I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I have, and I'm doing things purely because I love them and I'm passionate about them. And when you're doing those, and these things really excite you, and you do them for no other reason than doing them, rather than trying to, or surrendering your happiness to some future time. Because I think that's something that, not only because I get to deal with a lot of people, and I see it a lot, where they just, it's like, it's interesting to me because it's like I can actually feel within myself that there's times when things are so easy and they don't feel hard at all. And then there's times where I make everything hard. Like everything has to be hard work. Everything has to be a struggle. If you're not struggling, you're not growing, and all this kind of stuff. And then there's times where it's like, no, like, you can work 5 hours a day and still be extremely successful. If you're doing the absolute thing that you're passionate about, that you love, and you're getting everything that you need to get done.
But that's just probably because you found a way to work a little bit smarter. Things are obviously maybe going really well at that certain moment in time. There's a thing when it comes to being an entrepreneur and running your own small business or large business or whatever it may be, like, there's constant struggles, there's constant challenges, but then there's also times where, like, you feel a lot of gratitude towards the successes that you've had and whatnot. And it's just, one of those things that it's constant up and down. Starting your own business is hard. It's not meant to be easy. But the thing with people who are that way inclined, it's they've sort of got, instead of having the motivation where they're having to push the boulder up the hill, they're sort of pulling it, So you've got that momentum behind you at all times. And so that's why you could never see yourself going back and working a normal 9 to 5, because that's just not who you are. You'd rather have those challenges despite how hard it is, and that's when you first start out, like, it's an eye opener, isn't it? And then eventually it gets to the point where, you're right. There's times where it eats you. It just gets you down.
I think the thing for me is, like, I actually think I'm more talking from a different perspective, where it's like, you yourself make it hard. The challenges aren't indifferent. Yeah, but it's you yourself. There's times where you create the struggle. Like, you make that problem the struggle. Whereas there's also times where you just, you're so in love with the process that those things never feel like a burden, and then the complete opposite happens.
Do you think that maybe that's at a time when you're perhaps comparing yourself to somebody else?
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? What is the burden of success? So, because I honestly feel like there's 100% that comes from that comparison syndrome, where you compare yourselves to those around you. That is something as humans we do 100%.
And social media's just made it even worse.
It's built into us to do that, and that steals the joy away. Because you do surrender yourself to the point, or surrender your happiness to the point of where you believe there is a problem-less existence. And that's such a mirage. That is such a mirage. The fact that life has no problems or business has no problems. And it really made me think that, and even for me, like, I even know within myself that I am someone who, I feel like I sometimes put that mirage in front of myself because that's been my past. That's all I've known. My most successful times have been when I push through struggle. And then when I almost feel bad when that struggle's not there. So I just put it there, and I put that burden on myself because I'm maybe scared to flow. I'm scared to to exist without my back against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably one of my greatest struggles. Why do I make things hard?
But that's because we've been told that that's what being an entrepreneur is like. It's meant to be hard. It's meant to be a grind 24/7. But in reality, being an entrepreneur is about setting up systems and processes that it will allow your business to grow without you. And so this is why a lot of the time when a business has reached ultimate success, their CEO sort of steps away, the co-founder steps away, because they're at the point where they don't need to be there anymore, and they can start to just focus on what the future holds rather than the day-to-day, and so that's where, it's a constant struggle, but I guess that's where you need to then focus on other things that will keep you balanced and grounded, and to focus on the traits of being gratitude and, but I get this comes down to self-actualization, doesn't it? I read The Alchemist recently, and that's all that talks about, is the path to self-actualization. And it's always going to be a rocky one, and we'll never actually get there. It's like the path to enlightenment from Buddhist monks. Like, you don't ever actually go there, but it's about the journey, and we should learn to love the journey, no matter how difficult it is. But yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I definitely, I love life, right? Like that's something that I know is always with me, and I think that's the thing that does hold me grounded. I love it. I don't ever sit there, and I think I love it because I've been to hell. And when I say that, I mean, like, I've struggled with mental health before, and it was a pretty tough time in my life. So I think now especially like with meditation and mindfulness, and I went on a 7-day silent retreat, and that was quite, you say you don't ever get there, but I swear, I felt some of it that week. But I think that completely changed my perspective on things. So it's never that I don't love life. I think it's more for me that I need, like, I almost, like, every time that my back's not against the wall, it's like I almost feel like I'm doing something wrong, or I even get scared that I'm going to lose what I've got, because and that's, I think...
It's complacency, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I get scared that I'm going to lose that, and I think that's actually completely incorrect. Yeah, like I think that's something that I actually want to start to work on.
But it's something that I've noticed within myself as well. So, like, you develop a certain level of success, but then there becomes a certain expectation on you that you're gonna, like, you have to continue that, and then that's when you start to get in your head. And you build up these anxieties because you may not be performing to the standard that you used to. You may not have the same hunger or the same drive, and that's just an externality too. That's you thinking that people are comparing you to how you used to be, or whatever the case may be. You comparing yourself to other people again. And so that's where you need to get to the point where you start to, you focus on what it is that you've already achieved. Little bit of perspective, focus on, I guess.
Because you're an interesting one for me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you were fucking retired 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And like, so, you could walk away right now and everything would, you wouldn't have to work again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like...
I tried that though, and I realized that it wasn't for me. I needed to feel like I was progressing, because as soon as I lost that purpose that you have in life, man, it's hard to come back from that.
But that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like, does it have to be hard? So part of me thinks that, and maybe it's a personality thing. Like, maybe I do need my back up against the wall to get the best out of myself, But I also know people that don't. I also know people that still crush it and still do extremely well, and they don't feel that way, Like, they don't feel like they have to do anything. So it's interesting, right? And I guess that's the dichotomy I'm looking at right now. Is like, I'm like, I want to see what it's like when I don't. I want to see what it's like when I do relax. Like, maybe I become a better business owner because I set those processes up, and I'm okay with, not being so in it. You know what I mean?
Well, like, from my own experience, I would say that I work a lot smarter now than what I used to do. I used to work very hard. the thought of working very, very hard now, it's unappealing, because I know what it's like to work 100-hour weeks, to get very little sleep, to have 7, 8 coffees a day, and it put me in a state where I wasn't happy, you know. And so I'm at the point now where I try to work as smart as I possibly can, whilst still emphasizing things that I love to do, like taking care of myself, like physically, and eating well, and having time for myself to focus on my mindfulness and all those sort of things, because that allows me to be a better business person, allows me to make better decisions as well. So, yeah, like, I don't really know. I think everyone needs to go through that challenge in order to determine what it is that they're seeking out in life. Because I went through that and I realized that I couldn't just retire. I needed to still be having some sort of forward progress, but having the freedom to be able to choose what it is that I wanted to do was such a luxury, you know. And now I can really pursue the things that I want to do. I still am working hard towards achieving those goals, and I set myself new goals. But yeah, it's an interesting sort of
even like
perspective to have.
in my work, I think that's the thing that I feel at the most is like, it's it's like sometimes my perception tricks me, like in the terms of like I need to feel like something's hard for it to feel like I'm progressing instead of just progressing. And again, I think that's more of maybe a way that I'm wired, where it's like I'll tend to make things harder than what they need to be, because I need to feel that hard work instead of just getting the progress. And
I reckon, like, I'm exactly the same. I always, for some reason, I always take the road that is so bloody challenging. But I reckon at some point in our lives, we're gonna have to, like, we'll come to this sort of fork in the road where you can choose to take that hard option again, or there's the one where it's a little bit easier. I reckon we'll hit a point at some stage where it's like, yeah, you know what? I don't really want to put in all of that work. I don't want to have that anxiety hanging over me, that stress hanging over me all the time.
But I mean, the biggest thing for me is it's perception, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, because there's people doing more than us.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing that I question, right? Is like, and I know they're probably super performers and so on, but for me, it's more about the perception of something being hard, because like, you said that we choose to take the hard road, but what is the hard road? Yeah, but a perception of
our road's probably easy for somebody else.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
So what, my whole thing is like, what in my mind makes me think that this is hard, and why do I perceive it this way? Is that me? Is that the way I'm wired?
Yeah.
Do I want this to be hard because it makes me feel better about myself? Do I want this to be hard because it it brings the best out of me, or do I want this to be hard because that's the way I perceive the journey? That's the way I perceive where I'm going. It needs to be hard.
Well, it may be challenging because it's an area that we're not skilled in, perhaps, and so then that's what drives our desire to continue learning, because obviously we're finding something difficult, and the only way to get around that obstacle is to learn a way to obviously improve on that area. So perhaps that's what it is. It's challenging because we haven't done it before, and that's why they say practice makes perfect. You do something over and over and over again to the point where you're a professional in that regard, and I suppose that's when things do become easier.
Success, huh?
Mm-hmm.
The burden of success.
Yeah, and you're right. It's something that you're constantly pursuing it, because once you achieve something, it's never enough, and so we're always wanting more. It's our human nature to always be wanting more, and it's a very selfish trait.
I think the biggest thing for me for this year is can I do it without feeling that need for it to be hard? Can I do what's necessary to get the success, to get the progress, without trying to get into this headspace where I'm grinding myself to the absolute bone? Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like I do that. I feel like I bring that on myself. I don't feel like the things I tackle are challenging, yes, but I feel like my own perception and my own mind triggers me to be like that. To triggers me to fall into that place, because that's what's gotten me to where I am.
I think it's an experience thing. It's an age thing. I reckon that could potentially go away once you are a certain age, once you've got certain responsibilities. I reckon you get to the point where you just prefer to do the easy option, you know?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I still question what is easy and what is hard.
Mm.
Yeah, like because again, it's a perception for me.
Mm.
Like that's the whole thing. I think the thing is with myself, right? It's like honestly, man, like, I can think back through my 20s, my early 20s. I'm still in my 20s. My early 20s though, right? When I was like from probably 21 to 24, and my back was fucking up against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm talking like long ass days, just like no money, at points, and like, living out of home and just grinding through the days. And like a part of me goes now is like, I'm so grateful. As I said before, like, that for me, I look back to that and I go, that was hell, for me at times. And then I look now and I go, like, I'm cruising.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me also thinks, do I try to bring that feeling back, or do I revert to that because I feel like that is what brings me that next success? And I feel like that's not the truth. In my head I know that, but it's an automatic system in me. It's my nervous system.
I don't think you could get back to that because you're now at a point where you've developed.
But it's like trauma, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, someone who goes to war, they're still experiencing the traumatic experiences 10 years down the track.
Yeah.
Because it's built into their automatic nervous system, autonomic nervous system. Sorry, and I feel like that's not just something that happens at war. That's how an autonomic nervous system works. It's there to protect us, and that's what I'm saying. I feel like one of the biggest challenges for me moving forward is can I overcome that? Can I achieve success and progress without reverting back to that dog, that back against the wall, that feeling that I need to be in struggle, because you don't need to be in struggle to achieve success, and I feel like a lot of the time I can bring that on myself, and sometimes it gets the absolute best out of me, but sometimes it also makes me not the person that I want to be for the people around me. And that's what's changing in my life. That there's I've got a dog now. And
this is what I was getting at. Like, your responsibilities are changing, so you're at a point where you can't be that person anymore because it's going to upset other people who are close to you. So you can't have that mentality because it's a very selfish one, and that's just going to get you into trouble, and it's going to lead you to a path where you're not happy,
That's been one of my biggest realizations is, I pride myself on being a great person, but I also feel like, I went to on my silent retreat. There was a time where I think it was about day 4, so I hadn't talked for a while, and I've been meditating 3 or 4 times a day, and they got these labyrinth meditations that you do, and you're walking a labyrinth, so you're going from left side of the brain to right side of the brain in this circle, and you're meant to get absolute clarity, and you got to pick a rock before you go do that, and the rock has a word on it, and that is meant to gain clarity on it. And I remember picking up the word patience, and I put it down, and then I went to pick another rock, and it was patience. And I was like, hey, that's the one. And then, through this meditation, just through having absolute clarity, my mind was so clear, and things were coming to me, words. But the words that kept coming to me was the key to constant joy is unconditional patience. To the point where I was crying because I had all these realizations about, the fact that I was so selfish and didn't have that patience meant that there was times where I wouldn't see my grandma for a long time. I wouldn't see my family, I wouldn't text my mum. And, to be fair, like it still happens now, and it's that selfishness. And I think the fact that, what I'm starting to realize, even with just having a dog with me 24/7, is how selfish I can be. And that's, I think, what that mindset of struggle puts me in. It puts me into this place where I just block off everyone, and I get into this zone where I get a lot of shit done, but I also block off everybody, and I'm not the person to the people around me that I want to be. To my partner, to my family, to my my dad, my mum, my grandma, my cousin, and I think that's something that I really want to change, and I really want to work on this year. So, and I think it's, for me, it is that burden of success that everybody feels. It's the perception that I need to be a certain way, or I revert into where my autonomic nervous system takes me, because that's what's gotten me through periods or helped me achieve things. So, maybe it's one of my goals this year to try and change that.
It will ultimately revolves around your self-awareness, isn't it? And when you are in those moments where you're meditating and you're focusing on your mindset, you need to probably set an expectation of that time, to sort of say that, okay, this period, like this 20 minutes that I'm going to spend to focus on my mind, I'm going to set the expectation that I'm going to focus and prioritize the things that matter to me, and those things are your family and the people who are closest to you, So that's probably what you need to start to do. A good challenge for yourself, but it's one of those things. We get busy, we get caught up in our head, we get caught up in the grind, and so if you can sort of put a habit around doing that constantly, that's when you'll start to have that self-awareness where you'll be able to make that change.
For sure. Couch sessions.
It was a good one.
Started with vaccines, ended up with me almost crying. Awesome. So there's a part in this where we cut. Noah, my new puppy, peed on the couch, so we had to fix that up. But thanks for listening, guys. If there's anything you want us to talk about, make sure you reach out. Couch Sessions is absolutely anything goes. Investors Podcast is pumping at the moment, so we've got some really cool episodes coming up with that. So if there's anything with the Investors Podcast you want us to talk about, make sure you let us know. We're really looking to build out a channel where you can come and listen to life-changing conversations that you may not have access to. So it's all going to be around business, wealth, and character. So obviously, all your support is so appreciated. All the support on social media, the support on the YouTube channel, on the podcast. We really appreciate it for all the shares. So keep sharing. Make sure you subscribe if you're enjoying the podcast, and that means that we can keep doing this, which is crazy to think about, that this is a part of work. So it's great. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.